Before I start this video, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever made something? Very funny, I know, but I'm being serious. Have you? I'm assuming you have, so let me ask you something else. Are you happy with it? Are you confident in your creation? I'll give you some time to think. Because chances are, you're not so sure about the answer to that question. And you know what? That's perfectly okay. In fact, if you've experienced any self-doubt ever, then this might just be for you. Now let me introduce to you a thought. Now you're gonna have to do a little bit of work here, so stick with me. Because this isn't just any old thought. Humans have upwards of 6,000 thoughts a day, which equates to 250 per hour, or just over 4 per minute. But this thought, you've thought about it before, most likely multiple times. This thought is something that you've wanted to do, or something that you've wanted to learn. Maybe even something you wanted to make, but haven't. I'm sure some things come to mind by now, right? Cool. Now, hold that thought for me. Just keep it in the back of your head for a bit, because I'm about to introduce another thought. Let's talk about cards for a second. There are 52 cards in a standard deck. Were you to draw one at random, theoretically each card has a 1 in 52 chance of being drawn, right? Well, let's throw the cards at a wall. By the laws of probability, there is theoretically a chance that these cards will fall so as to form a perfect stack, all neatly aligned and in order. Whilst that may be true, it doesn't happen, does it? Go try it. Go through some cards at a wall right now. If they all fall in order, email me. I'd love to see it. But the fact of the matter is, the odds are so astronomically stacked to not be in your favor that nothing short of divine intervention would be needed for this to happen. Unfortunately for us and our dreams of throwing cards, our universe is programmed in a way that as a law of nature, things will naturally move from order to chaos. In a metaphysical sense, the thermodynamic law of entropy proves this. Whether it be atomic decay, light being scattered through our atmosphere, or the aforementioned cards being thrown at a wall, our universe will always favor the chaotic and the random. Now, let's go back to that thought you had earlier. That thing you haven't done yet. Why haven't you done it? We all have our reasons, I'm sure. Just as there are reasons why the cards didn't fall perfectly in order. If it makes you feel any better though, the simple act of doing something is going against the near infinite probability of that thing not being done. So it is in this act of creation that we may see courage. Courage that acts against the natural discourse into chaos. It is by confiding in this courage that I present the concept of the anxious creator. The anxious creator, and anxious creation in general, isn't about creating things in a fearful and anxious manner, as the name might suggest. Rather, anxious creation follows one key principle: moving with fear and courage so as to create. It revolves around this idea of balancing this almost hyper-aware anxiety that we can experience, and balancing it with blind courage. It's a way of framing your thoughts that disregards concepts like success and failure. Rather, it encourages creative practice and freedom. It recognizes fear and anxiety as an inherent part of any creative practice, and as such treats them as tools to aid in creation, rather than things that inhibit creative ability. Now this all may sound like a complex set of rules, but I'm almost certain that you yourself watching this video have embodied these values at some point. Anxious creation is intentionally open. It's simply meant to be a way to frame your thoughts, rather than a set of strict guidelines to be followed. But the proposition of something as a solution requires the existence of a problem to begin with. In this case, the problem isn't anxiety and fear. As mentioned earlier, these are key parts of anxious creation. The problem is in fact noise, creative noise. In saying this, I'm specifically referring to the hyper-objectification of social media. Timothy Morton coined this term of hyper-objectification in his book named Hyper-Objects: Philosophy and Ecology After the End of the World. In this book, he defines a hyperobject as real objects that are massively distributed in time and space. Morton signifies 4 key qualities to define hyperobjects, these being viscosity, squishing, non-locality, and transdimensionality. Morton's application of these terms are vague at best, and are rather contradictory at times. To summarize, a hyperobject is something that sticks and squishes its way across many different mediums across time and space. Things like language, visual art, or global warming are all examples of a hyperobject. Over the past 2 decades or so, social media has grown and evolved from a unique and eccentric way of keeping in touch with others to something inescapably large. So large, in fact, that the vast majority relies on it for marketing, entertainment, and even education in some ways. But how exactly is this an issue? Well, in theory, there's nothing wrong with social media. However, algorithmic culture and the sheer monolithic amount of content being shared on platforms like Instagram and YouTube mean that the distribution of said content can be biased and unfair. Recommendation algorithms are getting more accurate as time goes on, but at the end of the day, there is always going to be a disparity between the user of the platform and the platform itself. That being, you may just be using the platform to post content or view other people's content, but the platform itself just wants to keep you there for as long as possible. This is because the longer you spend in-app, the more ads you see, and in turn, this means more money is generated for the company that runs the platform. Let's look at Instagram, for example. I personally use Instagram for my photography. I take a lot of photos, but I don't post often, and I definitely don't stay up to date with what hashtags are most popular. Now, in turn, that means that fewer people will engage with my work, and as such my account will not grow. If I were to take Instagram more seriously, I would have to spend far more time posting content and making sure I'm using keywords that will get me picked up by the algorithm. This then marks a significant change in how my content is being treated by Instagram. If I create content that consistently engages people who view it, i.e. they are liking, commenting, and following me, then the algorithm will in turn show my content to more people. But why does it do this? This is because my work is engaging its users. Then those users will be more likely to come and view my work more. This then means that they are using Instagram more, seeing my posts, seeing other work like my own, and most importantly, seeing ads. The problem here is that this evokes the age-old problem of quality over quantity. If an artist is spending months on each artwork and only posts the finished product, then no matter how much effort they put into it, they will be lost amidst a sea of clickbait and spam. Social media as a whole has the issue of quantifying the value of your work based on the quantity of it. It's an ironic paradigm because the creators don't want to make crappy and mass-produced content, and users don't want to see crappy and mass-produced content. Yet, it is exactly this soulless, mass-produced content that gets propagated to audiences everywhere. Algorithmic culture is alienating, and it's all-encompassing, and in reality, we can't escape it. The reason for this being is that for the majority of us, social media is everywhere. It is by definition a hyperobject. Social media, in many ways, is a constant influx of information that feeds the anxious, hyper-aware state of mind. It throws off the balance of anxious creation and has to be matched by blind courage. By thinking in a way that shifts the focus of the creative mind away from success and away from failure, it makes it possible to focus on creation itself, realigning thought with action, so to speak. This is in a way the essence of the anxious creator. This philosophy can be applied to many different artists in history, such as Van Gogh, who was outcast as a madman his whole life. He suffered through mental illness and neglect from those around him. Yet, he did this for his art. Frida Kahlo, who battled against social norms that had been preordained for women, using her art as a medium, who fought against what defined femininity and made her own definition of feminine. It could be applied to so many more, and it could be applied to you. The common theme here is summed up pretty nicely by Roman poet Virgil, who wrote "Possunt quia posse videntur," which translates to "they can because they think they can." Many other phrases throughout pop culture embody anxious creative values, such as "just do it" from Nike, or "do or do not, there is no try" by Yoda. Or even the phrase "fake it till you make it," which has been used by so many people. After all, what's really stopping you from making the things you want to make? For if you hold your anxious fear and blind courage in equal measure, then surely nothing will be out of reach. No goal too high, and no creation too outlandish.